all for now. One more in a drum roll, please. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I hope you had fun.
Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I'm going to cover for you my 4-0 run on the Saturday, July 26th lobby tournament. You probably saw in the opening clip, we ended up winning there, getting all of the rewards, and we used a budget Portalcraft deck in order to win. Alright, to start off, we faced Runecraft. I think Runecraft, Swordcraft, and like you don't really see too much Portal like you did last set, but I think Runecraft is probably the strongest deck. There was a good amount. I think there was like 3 or 4 Abyss decks in my lobby. I didn't run into any of them, obviously, as you saw on the replay screen there. I was hoping to, because I think I do very well into Abyss aggro. Into the Abyss mid-range, I think this deck can struggle because the Abyss mid-range just outdraws you and outvalues you long-term, especially with their new legendary. But the aggro variation, I think that you have a really, really strong matchup into. So here we're going second, and I'm going to use my play point right away because I have another 2-cost card on curve in the Puppet Lancer that I can play. So I'm going to develop the 2-2 early so that I can start pushing face damage right away. On turn 4, I have the Indomitable Fighter. On turn 3, I have the Yudi, so I have a very strong curve, and my goal here is deal as much damage before their turn 5 where they drop Ann and Greya. Depending on what variation of Runecraft they're on, they could be on like the actual Earthright deck where they play the Edelweiss and the new card that comes in and does 3 damage on 4, which they could play here, and that is very, very strong. They may not have had it, they just end up scooping here, and I'm like, I'll take it. As a 1-0, I faced up against the only Havencraft player in the lobby. I was really surprised. I was hoping to face more I was hoping to face one of the Abyss because I think all 3 of the Abyss won theirs, and I guess all 3 of them got mashed up into the other pairings, and I'm like, oh, of course. The Havencraft matchup on my main account, I made it to the finals last weekend, and I lost in the finals with Portal Puppets to a Havencraft player because they just saw like all of the legendaries on, like, they saw like 2 Wilberts, I think all 3 Ethers, like it was just nuts, and I just couldn't, they just outvalued me. I just ran out of resources and lost in the finals. So I was a little skeptical about this matchup. The opponent starts off with a good turn 1, right, in the Sanctuary. They don't have a turn 2 play, so no warded character on 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to develop more threats. They do have the warded character on 3 though, and this is why this deck is crazy, right? Like they play so many legendaries, so much good value. I'm just going to opt to clear it with the Divine Thunder. I debated for a little bit because the Divine Thunder in this matchup can be very good to take out a big threat later on, like Jean and stuff, but I'm like, I have it now, I'm just going to deal with it. They're going to develop another Grimnir and evolve it along with dropping a Sanctuary, and they're forced to evolve here to clear some of my threats, right, because I'm pushing damage. This is where this Vade comes in really, like clutch, really good, like really handy, because I'm going to develop the 2-for-1 body, clear the threat, and now I have pressure, like massive pressure. I'm going to put even more pressure by evolving my Lovestruck Puppeteer here. They're going to go ahead and develop their Wilbert now using their play point because they went second, so they get it out at 1 turn early. They clear my Victoria. They're down to 2 defense. We draw into the second Orcus, and I'm feeling really, really strong here. So this scenario, just to be aware of this, right, guys? Whenever you play Noah, you want to make sure you have 7 cards in hand, if you can. So I play a Puppet for free here. It does get ward because I still have the Symphonic card on the field. But then when I play this Puppet, I have 7 cards. So when I play Noah, I'll be down to 6 cards, so I'll get the +3 Puppets. Otherwise, I'll lose one of my Puppets, which is fine, but you definitely want to maximize your card advantage where you can. So like putting this Puppet on board, especially because it has ward, isn't necessarily all that bad. So with the 2-1 Puppets that I have, and you can see what I talked about in the deck list earlier, from the Lovestruck Puppeteer Evolve, I get the extra Puppet. And they're all boosted up now to 2-2. Like I did have to play this one out before I played the Noah, but it's fine. So I have 2-1 puppets now because of the Noah boost, and so 1 puppet gets free value there, taking out the Wilbert, and then I'm going to be able to clean up this just a little bit. I do make a misplay here because I was thinking through my line and I was kind of like at a quarter time left. So what I should have done here was use the evolve on the Noah and take out the final warded character. Then I could have pushed 7 damage. Doing this, it does get the Evolve Symphonic card on field, which, you know, you could argue is fine, but then I only deal 5. So I miss out on 2 damage, and I miss evolving a Noah, which could have been a 7-8 body. You know, traded into the 2-4 would have been a 7-6, but then I would have pushed for 7 damage. Or no, sorry, not 7 damage, because this attacks something, right? Well, I guess it's neither here nor there. I would have pushed 3 damage. I don't know if what was better in hindsight, but this is what I ended up doing, and I guess it's fine. I'm expecting because they're on 7 play points here. I'm expecting either Ether or the Unholy Vessel to board clear. They go for the Selfa, which gives them back some health and wipes out a decent portion of the board, but they're not able to clear. And I think let's go back actually. Hold on one second. So they make a misplay here because I think they forgot they had the Grimnir crest. They should have used the Selfa to take out the Noah, because the Grimnir would have taken out the Symphonic Heart. So this is the bigger threat, obviously, because it has the passive effect to give ward to the puppets. But now the Grimnir leaves my Noah at 1, and I have a 5 push to face damage that I can put up now. We developed a second Noah here, super evolve this to take care of the Selfa, and then where the puppets will clean up the Fox of Purity here. One of our puppets ends up getting double boosted from both of these Noahs, so it's a 3-1. So we can use the 3-1 puppet and the 2-1 puppet to clear the 2-5 Fox of Purity, and then we can push 5 damage to face, dropping the opponent to 2 with the other Noah that they left on board. In hindsight, it may not have mattered. I mean, I guess it does now, because Selfa would have been able to get them back up to 11 potentially if I wasn't going to be able to push an extra 5 damage to face. But here, I'm just like, yeah, Orcus wins the game because I got double puppets in hand. So Orcus plus a free puppet, this is what you play for. This is your line. This is your finisher. This is why Portal Puppets is relevant. It's why it's a good deck, because this finisher here can deal anywhere from normally 8 with just Orcus in isolation, as long as the opponent has at least 1 character that you can push through. And then it can deal anywhere up to like 11, 12, 13 damage, depending on if you have an enhanced puppet that you can play for the 5th character from what you generate with your earlier game cards. Like Noah obviously got me a 2-1 puppet to hand, so I was able to push in for extra damage. And that one misplay, you know, the opponent was probably going to lose anyways, but this just guaranteed that I won because they were unaware of their Grimnir crest. Alright, so next up, we're up against Swordcraft. And this matchup is kind of like 50-50. It can go either way. It really depends on if Swordcraft sees their high value cards. Similar to what I was explaining with the Abyss matchup, the Abyss mid-range matchup, Swordcraft can really outvalue you because they're Amalias. Like, you don't need the Evo points for the Amalias, and now they have Gildaria, which gets the free Super Evo as well. So like in the late game, if you get to that point, you just get outgrinded and you just lose to Sword. So you have to basically be very aggressive and try to close the game out early. And what's messed up about, not messed up, but what's really also kind of like an issue is you always have to worry about, am I at 12 health because I get Alberted for free, right? So you got to be very, very aware of those things. The opponent here, you know, we're just going to trade back and forth in our early game. This new card is very, very good for them, the Syria. They're going to end up dropping another one and being able to clear my Yudi. So they're doing a lot to mitigate my early game aggression here. On 4, again, like I mentioned in the deck profile, you're going to develop 2 2-drops most of the time. And puppets get really good value on the clapback into the Gunslinger made there. We're going to demand the opponent have to answer both of these. They don't have a direct answer because they're going to drop 1 Hound, and that's really good for me. Whenever they don't get the triple Hound up on the enhanced 6, that's really good. This is a little bit of a weak play, but I mean, what else was I really going to do? I could have dropped this to get the ward Victoria, but the opponent probably pushes through my board anyways, and I'm like, they're going to aim, like on 5, they're probably going to aim to clean up this board a little bit, and at least if they clean up the Firestorm duo, it'll trade out by dealing 4 damage to something else if there is anything else remaining on the board. So they don't have a big play, they don't have like Luminous Magus or anything, they just have Luminous Lance Trooper, which, you know, you can see here, they're forced to trade out into the 4-4, and they have no follow-through play, and they wasted an Evo point in order to clear my board. So I'm in really, really good, a really good position, despite going first, right? But the opponent is going to get their play point back here. Do they have the Amalia or anything significant? No, they do have the Gildaria, though, which is still very strong. They're going to deal 2 damage across the board and get 2 Knights. Steel-clad Knights, so they're 2/2 bodies, and then they're going to trade out my Noah. So that's good tempo swing for them, but they did use up both of their Evo points, and I still have 2 of mine. This is where like puppets get value. I didn't talk about this too much in the deck profile, but you can see you don't usually use your Evo points with puppets because you're so efficient in the early game. You don't need to use your Evo. You don't need to waste your Evo points. You're very efficient in the early game with your puppets being able to clear boards. So as a result, you can save these Evo points for things like Sylvia in the late game to clear, as well as draw, obviously. Yudi to draw extra cards like I mentioned in the deck profile. Phil Dow, which is one of the reasons I took this out originally, but then I was like, no, this card is just too good of a value because I end up saving my play points. Like Phil Dow clearing off a big threat later on is so relevant and for so cheap, right? Like you don't really need your Evo points. You need your super Evos for the Orcus. But the other thing you can use your Evo points on is Odin as well to push extra damage. So like the deck synergizes and comes together very, very nicely for these reasons. So another good thing is like on the Evo, Victoria instantly clears the Gildaria. That's really good value for us there as well. And now we develop the Ruby. I was debating if I wanted to do Ruby or if I wanted to do Puppet Lancer, but we put back Puppet Lancer and draw Puppet Lancer, and I was like, that's fine. Obviously, in this scenario, like I talked about in the deck profile, I need to find Orcus. If I don't find Orcus, I'm just going to get outvalued here, because like, while I do have a good size hand, like they're all small, low-to-the-ground characters, and these puppets are getting to the point where they're not efficiently trading anymore, right? Because they're very good in the early game, as you can see. Like, I forced my opponent to waste 2 Evo points, but now where these puppets are going to get their value is I get an Orcus and these things get Storm and Bane, and I'm able to use these to clear bigger threats as well as push face damage, right? So we're going to go ahead and, or not go ahead, but the opponent's going to go ahead here and Geno clear my board, basically leave the Ruby up, and that's fine. They've got some 1/1 Knights. We're going to Divine Thunder, which clears this board, and develop the Yudi, pushing to draw cards. We draw Orcus, and that's like great. I could Evo the Yudi here, but I do have 7 cards in hand, so I'd have to waste 2 puppets to get the draw 1. They're going to go ahead and develop the Valse, which will have the ambush, and I'm like, that's fine, because that takes up all your play points. Like, you do have to be aware that Valse plus Albert, right, is 16 damage to face. And if they have double Valse, this is how I actually lost. Is that how I lost one of my tournaments on the alt? Maybe it was this account on last week where I also went 3-1. I lost to double Valse and Arthur pushing 20 face damage like right away, and I was like, I would have won next turn, but I just didn't see my Orcus fast enough. So I'm very much aware of, like, you know, if they drop Arthur, it's 16. Am I calling it Arthur? Is it Arthur? Yeah, it's Arthur, right? It's 16 damage. They drop the Rush character, the new princess, and clear my board, and that's fine. We draw Darkside, which is some cool tech here. But we're going to go ahead and develop Orcus. I won't get the extra 1 point of damage for the super evolved Orcus taking out the balls because I can't challenge it. But I'm going to develop the 4/3 because I boosted this up by +1 with the Noah, the enhanced puppet here. And I'm going to be able to attack for a total of 4, 5, 8, 11 damage. It would have been 12 if Orcus could have taken out a threat. This is going to put the opponent on 3. And force them into an awkward position. Down comes the Amalia. This is where they can start gaining back some tempo from using those Evo points early on. They double clear my Lloyd, which is good because it gets rid of their blockers. They super evolve the Amalia, take out the Orcus, and then Valse hits me directly for 4. This is still out of Albert range. We draw Noah here, and this is where, like I talked about, saving that Phil Dow for these high value moments only cost me 2 play points. If I had an Orcus, I could develop the Orcus along with it, but this is going to be able to Evo, take out the Amalia, could also trade effectively into one of these, but I do have to be aware of, like, Arthur coming down, dealing 3 damage, and clearing my board. So you're going to see me make a very... I would think a heads-up play. You can, if you're watching this far, you can comment on if you think this is a good play or not. We're going to develop the Noah here, grab more puppets, and now what's interesting is these 2 earlier puppets are now 3/1s, which is basically enhanced puppets. I'm going to drop a puppet, clear out the other warded character, and because I have so many puppets, I'm like, I want to keep my board healthy and force the opponent, because obviously they have Albert, right? Statistically, I mean, they've only 13 cards into their deck, but they play 3 most likely. So I'm actually going to drop the 3/1 puppet, because I still have one if I draw an Orcus, and clear the Valse with that instead of using the Phil Dow, because I don't want the Phil Dow to go to a 4/2, or be traded. No, sorry, it would have been traded out, right? Because I'm doing 4 damage back to the Phil Dow. because Arthur coming down here will deal 3, which means the Lionheart or Filled Out would survive, as well as the Noah. So Arthur coming down here and the Super Evo, they have to do that to clear this, otherwise I go for game, and they can't push face damage, right? I'm at 15, they don't have game anyways. So this is the like play pattern that I'm thinking, just giving them extra incentive, say, yeah, go ahead and drop that Arthur, but they don't have it, I guess. Maybe it's in the finals, because I would face Swordcraft in the finals, we'll see. But yeah, I think they were just showing me like they just don't have the answer here. I mean, to be fair, we don't have game. We need to draw like Odin or something off the top, or Orcus. We are, you know, almost halfway through our deck. So, oh, and we draw the Seraphic Tidings, the draw 2. Okay, so we don't see the finisher, but yeah, we're going to continue to dig, and this is where I was talking about, right? There's the Odin for next turn. But this is what I was talking about in like, you guys, like this is where a card like Seraphic Tiding, you guys need to make sure that you draw through your deck, because you need to see your finishers with this deck, because, you know, you're trading out of each turn, like you need some other way to finish the game. The opponent draws, doesn't have the answer. We're on 14 defense as well, so even Arthur doesn't finish out the game here, and we're able to take that one against Sword. A little bit of a grind game back and forth, but you can see how much value we were able to generate with the puppets. All right, and then in the finals, I was again hoping to go up against Abysscraft aggro, but I guess all of them fell at some point, so that was a little unfortunate. But I was like, okay, Swordcraft, again, kind of a 50-50 matchup. At least I'm going second, which is a huge benefit. Our opening hand here, I thought for a while if I wanted to put back the Phil Dao and the Zwei, but or Zui, I don't know how you say it, but regardless, I ended up keeping it because I'm like, all right, well, I've got a couple of turn 2 plays, and I've got the turn 5. Like, turn 5 is kind of hard to come by sometimes, so I guess I'll keep this Zvi. We draw for turn into Ruby, and because of that, I'm going to develop my play point in order to put the early aggression out early. The opponent has no turn 1 or turn 2, and I'm feeling pretty good here because, you know, Puppet Lancer off the top again, just more aggressive threats. Down comes Valse on 3. Again, love to see it because I've got the Puppet Theater, which is going to get me a Puppet to hand, which trades out into that Valse, and I'm going to be able to continue to push face damage with the Puppet Lancer, and we have a Puppet on the end of turn there. Down comes the Gunslinger Maid, good value in trading out, but again, as a 2-1 body, Puppets efficiently clear this out. We draw the Firestorm Duo. Would have liked to see, obviously, the Indomitable Soldier there, so I can develop a 5/5 on 4, but it's fine. We're going to Ruby put back the Firestorm Duo because our turn 5 is likely going to be the Symphonic Heart. We double develop 2 drops right in the Ruby and the Phil Dao. The opponent on the clapback gets the Zirconia, which is really good value here. We're going to draw Love Struck, but we already know we're going for the Symphonic Heart. Down comes Victoria, takes out the Zirconia for free, and then we push face damage with the Ruby. A little bit of a misplay on my end, but I'm the aggressor in this matchup. I leave these 2/2 knights on board. They're going to opt to trade out all of their dogs to clear my board, which is pretty good value for them, and then evolve to push damage. And I'm like, yeah, they're just trying to get me into Arthur range, obviously, right? They get me down to 14 here, and that's really good for them. We draw Yudi. We're going to go ahead and drop that. And what I do here is very interesting. We draw Olivia, okay, and off of the Yudi, and then we develop the Love Struck. I'm going to opt to trade Evos here. Again, the opponent used up both of their Evos. I've used up one of mine. The Yudi here not only represents healing, but also represents card draw. I don't necessarily need card draw because we're at the top end, or midpoint / top end portion of the game, and I do have Odin plus Orcus. The issue is Swordcraft, you can see they have 6 cards in hand. Their cards just generate so much value, right? Because Amalia, Luminous Magus, Gildaria, etc., they all just generate free bodies. Geno if it comes down, so they're going to keep on having card advantage. I'm not going to be able to out advantage them because of how efficient their cards are at generating bodies on board. What I need to do is draw more resources so I can trade what they develop for free on board with my puppets, right? This is where the puppets come in handy. But also, I do need to find more Orcus potentially, because at 14, double Orcus is 16 damage without an extra puppet on board. So I just need to push for that. And as long as I keep myself above 12, I'm out of Albert range. But I do have the Olivia to heal, and I could potentially also grab Sylvia later on. And this is where saving those Evo points comes in handy. What's also interesting here is if I do use the Super Evolve on an Olivia, which means I won't use both of my Super Evolves on the Orcus, the Olivia will also be able to do an extra 2 points of damage with the 2 cards that are super evo that I push through. So it'll put them to 12, which puts them more in range of Orcust as well, right? So I don't necessarily need double Orcust, and that's kind of in the back of my head. Usually you don't use your super evo on Olivia because she's just a draw engine for you. Also, you know, recovering some play points and stuff is nice. So as expected, like I mentioned, they just have so many cards that generate value here. Geno clears the board, generates the 2 soldiers. The medical grade assassins here aren't doing enough, and this is what I talked about in the deck profile. Drawing the 1 of Olivia, the 1 of Firestorm duo, this is a great combination because I'm going to opt to Super Evo here, and I debated for a second. I'm like, I don't know if this is correct or if I should really play for the double Orcust, and obviously here I would have played Orcust using my play point, but I'm like, no, because I want to clear this board. The Olivia puts a lot of pressure on them because it demands that they answer, right? They dropped the new Urius, which is actually really strong here. Well, actually, I don't know if it's super strong. Like, they're going to be able to take out my Olivia, but this crashing in here can deal 4 damage to it. It's random, so the 4 damage may go to like this 1/1, which would be unfortunate. But yeah, even if the 4 damage went here, it's still not enough to clear it. So this was actually a pretty decent play from the opponent. They thought for a very long time, so I'm like, I don't know what they have in their hand. I know they have an Arthur for sure. Again, just statistically, 3 in the deck. They've gone through 12 cards, probably has 1 at least. But they're on 14, and I can clear this card with my Odin, right? Which is really, really important. Or medical grade assassin can't clear it, right? Because enemy followers can't attack followers or leader until the end of the next turn. So it really checks a lot of what I have. This is where like the 1 of Divine Thunder, the Odin really come in handy in taking out like really annoying cards like this. So yeah, they pass back to me. I draw Puppet Shield, but we already knew we were going to drop the Odin here. And this is actually really good because, okay, so a couple of things to note here. I'm going to be able to push a lot of face damage, which is great. We're going to use our second Evo here, right? So we're each on 1 super Evo left. I do 6 and 5, so from 14 they go down to 3. And I waste my Enhanced Puppet here because I don't have anything else, because I want to clear the 1/1, because if they do have Albert Super Evolve, that's 12 damage plus the 1/1 is 13, which means I would lose. So I have to use my Enhanced Puppet here. No need to save it because they're on 3 now. Like, I don't need to push the extra damage for the Orcust. Like, I'll have game anyways, so I should be fine. And now I have a wide board that they need to clear. They thought for a very, very long time, and then I guess they were coming up to the end of the turn. Their only play here is Albert clear, and they just have to hope I don't have Orcust. But I've had one since like near the start of the game, so I just know, like, yeah, as soon as I saw this, I was like, that's game. They have to clear my board. They can't push face and put me to 1 either. So we draw Orcust for turn there, but I already know that this is game, so we're gonna go ahead, drop the Orcust, and the opponent, I think, just scoops before I can super evolve. And just like that, we go 4-0 in the lobby tournament. A lot of back and forth. I think some pretty heads-up plays on our end, you know, knowing our matchups and stuff. Oh, it just hit 4 p.m. Eastern time. So, whoa, the game like froze. I guess I have to stop the recording here now. But yeah, that's the 4-0 run in the lobby tournament. Getting all the rewards, which was really nice, on a free-to-play, budget-friendly Portalcraft puppet deck. What we were using, it's more or less optimized, I think. The nice thing about puppets is it didn't really change too much from Legends Rise. Like, there's a couple of additions which you can choose to add. Like Odin, I think, is more or less added in a lot of decks this format, and this card is very, very good in puppets because it allows you to finish past your Orcust. This is, you know, what this deck plays for. This card is like one of the best, if not the best legendary in the game, along with Anangrea, in my opinion. And aside from that, these 2 legendaries, there's not really much else. Like, you don't really need the Olivia. It can come in handy, but it's just extra draw power to try to find Orcust. And then this new legendary, it's kind of hit or miss. The only reason you really play this way, in my opinion, is because you have nothing better to play on 5. Like, your 4 and 5 drop slots are really starved in this deck. You can see that on 4 we have just a Divine Thunder, so you're usually developing double 2 drops. We play 17 2 cost cards on 4, so you're just like kind of aggro out early on so that you can finish the game with Orcust later. 6 is very good, especially if you have the extra play point going second, because you can Noah. If you've built up some puppets in your hand with Lovestruck, Lancer, or the Theater here, your Noah can buff those puppets, so you really want to play for that line, like thinking ahead. And I've opted to also include 1 copy of Dirk, just in case I run into forest and stuff like that, putting up the fortifier artifact can force them into some awkward lines to try to like reduce this defense to 1 so that they can out it, or just have to play through this, which is very difficult. Also for the other aggro strategies, like it does really well into the Abyss aggro that's running around. Puppets do really well into Abyss in general, I find. But yeah, this card is just another 5 cost card. It basically comes down and the Victoria will allow you to out a threat instantly, and then this card gets outed by like pretty much everything on the clapback, but at least it forces an interaction on your opponent's turn, which still slows them down, right? They have to answer the Symphonic Heart and the Victoria, right? Because it's 2 bodies, so it's 1 body, like, or sorry, 1 card you play that generates 2 bodies. So you out a threat with the Rush Victoria, and then your opponent has to clap back and take out both the Victoria and this Swain. So that's why it's a good tempo-oriented card for you until you get to your heavy hitters, 6, 7, 8. And yeah, the addition of Odin here really, really helps. Only have 2, and my main account I do have 3 that I play. I haven't played the lobby tournament on my main account this weekend yet, but on this alt I ended up winning. On the 3 drop slot, because again it's a budget account, I guess, like free to play, I didn't craft the 3rd Yudi, so I pulled 1 and I crafted 1. I didn't want to spend my last couple of vials to make the last one, so I just opted for draw 2, because there are some times that you run into game states where, you know, Puppet is a very back and forth tempo oriented deck, and you want your opponent to develop cards on the board so that you can play your cards to counteract their cards. If they don't develop anything, then you're kind of just stuck and you're like, I'm not playing the puppets in my hand to just get banned or like banished the next turn, so I'll just take a turn off if you take a turn off to draw cards, right? And drawing cards is very important in this deck. That's why like evolving Yudi can be very relevant if you have less than the 5 cards or less to start drawing more cards. The Sylvia here drawing extra cards because you need to see Orcus. If you don't see Orcus, you're pretty much going to lose the game. But if you see at least 1, you have a chance. If you see 2, you probably win the game. Like that's what this deck is built around. The addition of Odin does help you as well. If you're able to get them down to like 10 to 14 life, you can get away with no Orcus if you see Odin at least. But generally, if you see at least 1 Orcus when you have them down to 10 to 14 life early on because of the aggro at the early game, you're doing really, really well. Finally, before we wrap up this deck profile, I will say like the Indomitable Fighter, the Enhanced 4 is really what you want to play this for. This is not really a 2-drop unless you're really starved for playing a card on curve. But even when you have the extra play point going second, saving your play point for developing this on turn 3 is really, really strong because your opponent might have trouble to out it. And similar logic to like, you know, not having too many good 5-cost cards to play, I find this card to be very, very strong because it comes in on 5, has Rush basically, right? Because it gets the free evolve. It's a 4/4, you rush it into something, you take something out. If it trades, you take out probably something else because it deals 4 damage when it's evolved. Also, I think in my tournament run, there was a scenario where I Olivia drew 2 because I had my 1 of Olivia and my 1 of Firestorm Duo in my hand. And I'm like, I Olivia, get back 2 play points, drop this for 2, Olivia super evolve, it evolves this for free. Now I have, you know, a 5/5 and a 7/7 in the Olivia. Take out 2 threats, deal 2 damage from the super evolve, and then if the opponent claps back and takes this card out, I'll deal 4 damage to something else because the evolve here, right, it's not a fanfare ability, it's last word. So as long as this card is evolved, you get the ability. So it has some nice synergy with the Olivia, pretty nice overall. So some cool synergies with the deck. 1 of Puppet Shield can come in handy as well to help clear especially Swordcraft boards. And then the Ruby, similar logic to the Yudi and the Sylvia, just more ways to sift through your deck. Sometimes you need to play this and you're just like, I need to find that Orcus, right? So you're aggressively digging. So that's the deck list and some of the reasoning behind it.